So I usually get through the intro slide and then have some people join in after that. But I'm one of those folks who thinks that we should start everything on time.
Was it cold for everybody this morning getting up? I think it was in the 30s over here. I'm in Cocoa.
Feels good to me. I like it cold. I'm in Tampa Bay.
Our ski trip got canceled, so I'm not gonna lie. I wore ski shoes to drop my kids off at school just so I could feel like I was really cold.
My spirit friend.
I just didn't get out of bed. It was easier that way. Stay under the blankets.
Yeah.
TMI there. Are you doing that meeting that way?
The camera's turned off. I'm not an amateur.
No, you wouldn't be in this business if you were.
Bradford, I'm happy to hear your voice, and congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's big things are afoot. I definitely need to catch up with you, Carrie. It's definitely been an interesting couple of months.
Well, hey guys, I show that it's 9 o'clock. I'd like to go ahead and kick things off if you don't mind. Thank you though. Appreciate the conversation. Make sure everything's working here. I'm Brian Retzlaff, and I am a solutions engineer with Legrand AV. And also joining is Carrie Manassa, who is the kind of the territory sales manager for Florida. So we are happy to be here at the BAI Virtual Tech Tour. Again, if you have questions, feel free to unmute your microphone and talk to me. If we happen to get any weird audio stuff, I may ask folks to mute their microphones, but right now it seems to be working pretty good, so we'll just go ahead and leave them the way that they are. And again, if you need additional information, we do like that you reach out to your BAI rep and talk to them. This session is being recorded. Carrie is recording that so that we can give it back to BAI for them to host at a later time. And the other piece of this is the session does offer a 0.5 CTSRU. If you need that, I need to have your email address so that we can email you the certificate. So a bunch of ways you can get that to me. You can email it to me. I'll have my email address at the end of the presentation, or you can even just open up the chat window and say, hey, I need that CTS credit, and give me your email address in the chat. But if I don't get your email address, we can't get you the certificate, is basically the way that works out. So let's dig right into it. This is Legrand AV is putting the easy in AV over IP. And it really is kind of a play on the fact that we have some new products, and I'm really excited about those new products. Part of the way that the CTS credit works for these things is if you're not really advertising your stuff and you're talking for an hour, you get 1 CTSRU. But if you're a manufacturer and you're kind of advertising your stuff while you do the training, you only get a half of a CTSRU for 1 hour worth of training. So I am going to be advertising some stuff. So full disclosure, this is about our products. It's not a general thing. However, I do want you to know, I do kind of have an assumption that most of us in the industry have at least heard of AV over IP, and we kind of know what it, in the basic form, we know what AV over IP is. So let's look at the market trends, and let's see what's going on in AV right now when it comes to AV over IP. And the way we are looking at this is we know that there's lots of things happening in the AV world when it comes to AV over IP. And we're seeing that this is a great solution for large or lopsided matrices. I'll explain a little bit more about what those matrices are. If you need flexibility, we're seeing AV over IP providing that flexibility. You know, like in combine and separate rooms. Remember how, you know, several years ago, if they wanted to take a podium and maybe move it from this spot on the stage to that spot on the stage, there were like 10 or 12 connectors you'd have to plug into the floor box. AV over IP simplifies that. It's a power cable and a network cable. And a lot of times that's all you really need to plug into that podium. And you can move it around anywhere you want to in the room as long as there's a network jack, right? So that flexibility is what AV over IP provides. And so we're seeing that get deployed in those instances. In conferencing, we're doing that in a lot more places than we were doing before. And again, having this flexible architecture makes that a little bit easier. And that's what AV over IP does for you, is it provides that flexibility. If you need more cameras and more audio in a certain space, AV over IP makes it easy to add more stuff. You just basically connect another device to the network and you have more of that, right? The other thing that we need now is we need more computers sharing these resources. And if we can send our video and audio over the network to a computer, it makes it that much easier. And the other piece is if we can just plug our computer into the network, it makes sharing that computer a little bit easier, right? And what you may not think of is, you know, if you've ever had one of those devices, those BYOD devices where you click a button and it sends your content to the display, that's ultimately AV over IP. And we've been using that technology for a while now. Not all of them are AV over IP, but the most common ones are AV over IP. This also simplifies things. I mean, we've got everything over a single network cable, including our power a lot of times, and we can control that thing with that same network cable. So like the camera I'm speaking into right now has a single network cable plugged into it. That's it. Very, very easy to wire in, very easy to install. And we're seeing that. Those are, again, these trends that we're seeing, the reasons why AV over IP is really becoming more popular in what we're doing, right? We're seeing the prevalence of gigabit network switches that are layer 2, layer 3 becoming super affordable. For instance, all of this information I'm using right now, my microphone is actually an IP microphone. It's a Dante microphone. My camera is an IP camera. And all of that is running through a simple Luxel switch. And that Luxel switch MSRP is under $500, right? And I can manage a bunch of stuff with that under $500 network switch. Well, when's the last time you had a huge matrix switch that was MSRP under $500, right? That also was your power supply, was your control system, you know, all of these other things that you're getting out of this very affordable network switch. Now, mind you, larger network switches do cost more, and you can get network switches that, you know, are super expensive as well, but there's a lot more of this gigabit network available. So it's a lot easier now. Remote management becomes so much easier when everything is connected to the network. And because of that, you know, we've got like Vaddio coming out with their deployment tool, which goes out and finds all of this Vaddio stuff on the network and puts it all into one little platform so you can manage all of that stuff very quick and very easy. But that's true with all AV over IP. You get stuff on the network, it's much easier to manage that remotely because you already have that connection to it, right? The one thing that is still happening with AV over IP that is not necessarily a good thing is that we are still running ecosystems. So I am actually using an ecosystem of products, the EasyIP ecosystem, which is my Vaddio EasyIP, and it is compatible with some other stuff, but it's not really broadly compatible. And when you look at AV over IP systems, most of them are locked together. You know, this manufacturer makes a transmitter and receiver, or encoder, decoder, however you want to use those words, and they only work with each other. They don't work across the other platforms. Now, There are some AV over IP platforms out there that are flexible. They're not really in an ecosystem, so to speak, in that, or they're not proprietary. Let's just say that, like your SDVOE products. Now, they tend to work with each other, right? But they're also 10 gigabits per second. So that takes you from gigabit networks up to 10 gigabit networks. And then there's also one called SMPTE 2110 in the broadcast world, where that stuff is generally compatible with the other stuff that's SMPTE 2110. And those ecosystems are compatible outside individual brands. Whereas, like, if you buy this Vaddio camera, it's really only going to work with the Vaddio decoder and the Vaddio EasyIP Mixer that Vaddio also sells. The other piece that's really making AV over IP happen is that as costs go down and performance goes up, we know we get more bang for the buck. And so we're absolutely seeing that happen in the AV over IP space. So we have addressed a lot of these trends as Legrand AV. And on the first end, if you don't know who all the brands of Legrand AV are, C2G is one of those brands. Vaddio, Luxel, which, by the way, C2G does this AV over IP product you're seeing here. Vaddio has its AV over IP ecosystem called EasyIP, and Luxel is the network switch that can manage all of these things, layer 2, layer 3 network switches. So Legrand has this complete solution for you within its brands. And then, of course, the other Legrand brands: Daylight, Chief, Middle Atlantic, Wiremold, and I think that's it. I may have left one out. But anyway, the whole point is that we have these solutions. So this is one from C2G. It's decoders and encoders with a network switch in the middle, a network controller. So you have your content on the left feeding into an encoder. Everything goes into the network switch. The network switch sends that content to decoders, which outputs to displays, right? Pretty straightforward stuff. These are the C2G solution, of course, is what we call it HDMI over IP. We're not really calling it AV over IP because it really is focused on the HDMI distribution, because C2G doesn't really have that control system in the background managing everything. So we depend on another control system to be the control system, but we can take the HDMI video and move it through the network. You can see here lots of sources, lots of destinations. You can even see a video wall. The C2G solution does have video wall capabilities built in, where you would actually put, if you see that video wall, there would actually be 9 decoders attached to that video wall, each one showing an individual piece of the video, and each one having the ability really to kind of lay out video and show multiple videos and things like that. So it's really actually a pretty great solution. We do, the C2G solution does also provide serial and IR control, but it doesn't, like process that. It's like if your control system sends a control command, it will then send that control command through the network to whatever device needs that control command. But we don't actually provide that controllers on the C2G side. And I talked about this a couple slides ago, but that lopsided matrix, this is perfect for that. And what that means is you either have a very small number of devices that need to be encoded and a large number of decoders, or the opposite of that, a large number of devices that need to go to a small number of displays. And these lopsided matrices are where you're really going to save money putting in AV over IP. Or a matrix where you just don't fit a standard matrix box. Like say you have 9 encoders and 7 decoders. That's not really lopsided. That's very close to the same number, right? But standard matrix switchers are 8x8, 16x16. So if you have 9 inputs, you have to jump up to that 16 input matrix, or you don't have enough inputs, right? Well, with AV over IP, you can just add another encoder to this, and you don't have to buy 16 encoders. You only need to buy the 9 encoders that you actually needed. So keep in mind, if you have a lopsided matrix, you should consider AV over IP as a solution. and the C2G solution is an awesome solution for that. Now, moving right along, if I have any questions, I know I do a lot of talking and it's hard to interrupt me, but just go ahead and unmute your microphone and interrupt me. I'll be happy to take those questions. The next product is the EasyIP product from Vaddio. And this, by the way, we had a stellar last 6 months. I mean, we basically released this early in 2020, but we rounded out all the products. Almost all the products got rounded out toward the middle of summer. And with the demands on conferencing, EasyIP, we just really, really did well with this. This product was really, really popular this year, selling all over the place to resolve conferencing issues. And you'll kind of see why it's so popular here in just a minute. Basically, I know there's a lot of text on here, but EasyIP is going to save you money. It's going to make it easier to install, just single cat cable to install. It is going to be one of those things where you don't have to have all kinds of video switchers and converters and things like that. You put in your cameras, you put in your microphones, you put in the decoder box, which we have 2 options available for that, and then you kind of figure out how you're going to manage your speakers, right? This really is a nice user experience. You know, the system I'm using here has multiple cameras, so I can switch back and forth between my multiple cameras, switch over to this one here. I can switch back to my main camera, and that's all just with a simple little push of a button here. All of that is very, very easy to manipulate. I can share this with multiple computers. In fact, I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here, but I'm going to point this camera just a little bit this way. So you can see if I open up my camera app here, I have the ability to show these same 2 cameras on multiple different computers at the same time. Of course, that's my other camera here, but I could switch over to the others. And so you can see I can use one set of equipment to feed 2 computers. Very, very powerful when you look at that functionality. And it just really gives you the ability to share this camera with BYOD. This is compatible with the new Barco ClickShare CX series. So, you know, if you want to put that in, man, you talk about easy. You plug this system into that Barco device via USB, and Barco sends the camera and the microphones and everything via wireless to the little button. And so, you know, again, you have to use the little button, but it works really, really well, and it is compatible with all of those different systems. So that's kind of EasyIP and why we really like it. And really, this slide is all about why it's so easy to use EasyIP. So the specific parts, the EasyIP 10 camera, 10x pan tilt zoom camera. It's the one I have over here behind me. You can read all of those other things, but basically just one single connection on the back of this. That's it. We do ship it with a wall mount. So just, again, that much easier for you to implement because the wall mount's in the box. Power, everything comes from the network switch. So it is really straightforward to use. The upgraded version of that is the EasyIP 20, a 20x camera. This one has a little bit more sophisticated optics, a little bit more sophisticated image sensor, a little bit more sophisticated. Everything about it is a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit higher quality. But we know that there are some places where you want to use EasyIP, but you have that long throw that you need to figure out. And so with this 20x optical zoom, you have the ability to set it in the back of a room and really zoom in on things. One thing that we are doing, we know this is an IP product, so we know it's going to plug into a network switch. So we are assuming you're going to use a network switch that has PoE plus capabilities to power everything. So we are not putting a PoE injector in the box. So you really do need to use a network switch. And as I said, it's actually, when you get to the point where you're doing multiples of these, it's more cost effective to use a network switch than it even is to use multiple PoE injectors. So kind of keep that in mind. It's kind of like you get the switch and the power for the price of just the power. And all of these things have intuitive web-based controls. They can be controlled by Crestron, AMX, Extron, you name it. The next product is the EasyIP decoder. This is a very simple decoder. It takes up to 4 cameras that are on the network. Through the network, it brings them into the box, right? Has the ability for you to add 2 of our older style microphones. So whether that's 2 ceiling microphones, 2 desk microphones, a mix of 1 of each. And then it also has an audio output for you to drive a speaker in the room. We do sell an amplified speaker that goes with this, just plugs into the Phoenix connector on the back of that, and it fills a standard classroom size, if you want to think of it that way, with conferencing audio. And then, of course, the output of this box is USB 3.0 to plug right into your computer to do all the soft conferencing. The EasyIP decoder is what is actually driving my other computer over here, whereas the EasyIP Mixer is what's driving the computer that you guys are looking at right now. Now, this adds a bunch of additional functionality to that decoder. So the decoder is kind of like the basic the basic decoder, right? It does what it needs to do, and what this adds is Dante audio. So up to 4 transmit and 4 receive channels of Dante. Keep in mind that's only 2 flows. So depending on what hardware you're using, that's how many different connections you can have in and out of this thing. It adds hardware triggers. So one cool thing about that is I'm going to stop sharing my content for just a second. And now you should be able to see me, right? These hardware triggers are kind of cool. When I step over to my whiteboard, what happened is I stepped on one of our step mats and it triggered a hardware trigger, which triggered a whole bunch of stuff to happen. It basically unmuted my microphone. This other secondary microphone that I have. It, of course, triggered a preset on the camera pointed at my whiteboard. So if I wanted to use my whiteboard, I could use my whiteboard. And it also guaranteed that the correct camera. So even though I was already pointed at this camera, if I had been switched over to the other camera, it would have switched to this camera for me to use so that I get this correct view of the whiteboard. And that's all because I stepped on this mat. Now, we also have a ceiling version of this, a little infrared sensor we can put right above the whiteboard. So whenever you step to the whiteboard, it triggers these triggers. Now, those triggers are also really handy because those triggers allow you to use all kinds of different sensors and devices and things like that to trigger the EasyIP system, right? So with that in mind, that's just kind of a quick demo of how these triggers work. But those triggers, 5 of them are built into the EasyIP Mixer. You also see on the EasyIP Mixer that you did not see on the decoder 2 HDMI connectors. One is an HDMI input, and the other is an HDMI output. So you can actually have your camera be decoded and sent HDMI to another device if you need it to be. You can bring in HDMI content if that's what you want to do. Like, for instance, I have here, if I stop sharing my content again, I have my other small little laptop plugged in. You can see that's now content that I can share. I can easily turn on my picture-in-picture, and you can see now that I have my content and my picture-in-picture showing. All of that is possible with this EasyIP Mixer. And it's just all kinds of additional features that we have available here with the EasyIP Mixer. This too is powered by PoE Plus, but I haven't even really talked much about the rest of the audio features. It has 2 analog inputs, 2 analog outputs. Those analog inputs provide phantom power if you need them to. So there's a lot going on in this box. It is more costly than the EasyIP decoder, but it also, the combination that you see here in my office is camera, EasyIP Mixer, EasyIP decoder, and I have a couple Dante microphones in my room here. And with that, I'm able to run 2 computers. I'm able to switch back and forth and share these cameras. I'm able to have this switcher, this mat, step view mat, triggering the presets. I have another push button preset trigger. There's lots and lots that I can do with the combination of all of this. And I actually can link the 2 of these together. It is a sophisticated way of doing that, so you'll want to get information from us if you want to do that. But I can link these together so I can share my microphones and I can share my speaker between the 2 different computers. So it's a very, very powerful solution, and we call it EasyIP, right? So the other thing that we have here, this is an eye chart, and I really just wanted to let you know that we have this available if you need to compare. Well, should I use the decoder? Should I use the mixer? Or there's another product. It's not an EasyIP product, but it is very similarly related to these products called AV Bridge 2x1. Which of these is the right solution for this customer I have when they want to do conferencing or whatever they want to do? And we can kind of get you a chart here. If you need this, then you might need this product or whatever. I don't expect you to memorize this chart, but what it basically comes down to is EasyIP Decoder can do 4 cameras and 2 of our older style microphones. EasyIP Mixer can do 4 cameras, an HDMI input, and a couple analog inputs and outputs, plus up to 4 of those Dante microphones. And then AV Bridge 2x1 is no IP cameras, but it has 2 HDMI inputs. It can do some direct RTMP streaming, and it does seamless switching, live seamless switching, whereas the other 2 do kind of a fade to black when they switch between different sources. All right. So the next piece of this is the network switch, and this network switch is super affordable. It is a great product that has all of the different capabilities you need for just about every AV over IP solution. In fact, this network switch is certified by a good majority of AV over IP manufacturers as a switch that you can use and configure correctly for all of those. And then we sell these as bundles: camera, switch, and decoder, or camera, switch, and EasyIP Mixer. One thing to keep in mind with these systems is that they do not include microphones. There's so many different ways and colors and versions here that adding microphones to this just made it almost more confusing. So what we did is we're giving you kind of the basics of an EasyIP system and what we call a base kit. And then we leave it up to you to determine which microphones you need to purchase with your base kit. Okay, and I kind of have that in a chart here that kind of shows the differences. You can even see with just the different permutations we have right now, we have, what is that, 8 different options of base kits. And so when you throw in all the different microphone options, it could just be too big of a list. So notice here, the key thing is that these do not include microphones, right? But there's different colors, there's different zooms, there's different capabilities, and whether you get the mixer or the decoder, you can kind of do the math in your head and see, you know, this is 2 to the power of 3 of different options we have, right? So, so those are available. We do also have this new EasyIP Ceiling Mic D. I left the D out of the name for some reason, but these are our new Dante microphones. Man, these have been awesome. We started selling these primarily to higher education this summer, and we're just getting nothing but glowing reviews from these. They are covering huge spaces. In fact, most classrooms are having incredible success with just 2 of these microphones. You know, and you're talking about normally you would have had at least 4 microphones in a classroom, plus the instructor wearing a lapel to really mic that room correctly. Well, these are doing such a great job for us. Now, keep in mind, it is a little white or a little black ball that hang out of the ceiling, right? But these have a phenomenal coverage in an 8-foot radius, 16-foot diameter, phenomenal coverage. Think about that. a 16-foot wide circle that you are hearing everything you need to hear in that 16-foot wide circle. That's why it only takes about 2 of them to be able to, really mic a room correctly. Again, I can't speak highly enough of these microphones. These are the Dante version. So that means they just get one single network connection up to the little box in the ceiling. It's PoE powered, and these Dante microphones will work well with the EasyIP Mixer or with that AV Bridge 2x1. Okay, notice at the bottom, they do not work with the EasyIP decoder. So we have Mixer, we have Decoder. Decoder uses our older style analog microphones. Mixer uses our newer style Dante digital microphones. Okay, so with that in mind, we also have a device controller available. The device controller is what I'm using to switch things around and turn on my picture-in-picture. It's a very cost-effective little tablet. It's PoE powered, so it won't run out of power. You can mount it using the Visa pattern, or you can use the desk mount that comes with it, the table mount that comes with it. This talks to one Vaddio device at a time, but the way I have it configured here in my home office is it's talking to the EasyIP Mixer, and the EasyIP Mixer is basically running the show here, so I don't really need any additional control for that. It tends to work really well. Been a really, really popular device for us over the last 4 or 5 months. All right. So what does the EasyIP setup look like? You start with a network switch, add on a camera, add on a decoder or a mixer, add on a computer to get your conferencing, running all those different conferencing platforms. Basically, the IP stream goes from the camera to the network switch to the decoder, turned into USB 3.0. And that is then transmitted into the computer via USB. And you notice there we're saying that you have just your standard category cables there. So just the standard 100-meter cables. Say you want to have multiple cameras. It's basically the same thing. Up to 4 cameras plugged into the switch plugged into the decoder. You see how that's basically the same thing, right? And so it will switch between any one of those 4 different cameras. If you have multiple USBs, like I do here, I need to have 2 different computers running. Well, how does that work? Well, you plug one EasyIP decoder going one way, another EasyIP decoder or mixer going the other way. Keep in mind, I don't really like this layout. I really think one of these needs to be a mixer and one of these needs to be a decoder. I should have changed that before I started this, so I apologize for that up front. It should be one mixer and one decoder. But you can do that then with up to the 4 cameras. Notice camera number 1 is streaming to one of the decoders. Camera number 3 is streaming to the other decoder, so they can show the same camera or they can be showing different cameras at the same time. Remember, I talked about how that decoder was a lot more cost effective, and it uses our old Easy mics, our old analog Easy mics. I say old, they went through a redesign about 1.5 years ago, but they're awesome microphones, but they have an analog background to them, right? And so there's what the back of the decoder looks like. Notice it's got 2 of our Easy mic inputs. That's just category cable running to the microphone or running to wherever the ceiling mic is. And that's what the microphone looks like. But the other piece of this is it has an analog audio output. And you can connect that directly to an amplifier and run it into the room speakers, and you'll get full echo cancellation that way. It works like it's supposed to. Or you can run it to our self-amplified speaker. Again, for a standard classroom, that speaker is typically a great audio option for just a standard classroom. It's plenty of volume, standard classroom. So here's, if you do have the EasyIP decoder, you can actually use the table microphone to switch between different cameras. Use a button on the table microphone and it will switch between multiple different cameras. As you push that button, it switches between the different cameras. So you don't necessarily have to have the device controller or a separate control system. You just need to let folks know, hey, this button on the microphone can switch the cameras if you're using the EasyIP decoder. Okay. You can also use a web UI. We have a full web browser, and that's basically what our tablet is using. And by the way, guys, if you're sending me questions through chat, this format I'm using does not give me a great experience to see what's going on in the chat. So hopefully Carrie is watching the chat. All right. So with that in mind, again, the web UI can browse through those things. So let's look at a setup with an EasyIP 10 camera. This is a very simple setup. Again, you see how that works. It's much like what we showed before, except we add in the microphone. And this is kind of the easiest setup we have available. Camera, switch, decoder, microphone, computer. Potentially, you could add in the device controller to make it a little bit easier to manage. What does this look like in a large classroom? Well, we may have a much more, the better EasyIP 20 camera. We could have up to 4 of those ceiling microphones. We could provide a content input via HDMI if we wanted to. We could have those triggers that I use, like to go to the whiteboard, and we could still have that device controller. All of those things connected into the network switch, and you're off and running. What does this look like for an auditorium? Well, we might use our tracking camera, the RoboTrack camera with the EasyIP 20. Again, you see a lot of these same things. Using the EasyIP Mixer, we might have a lavalier microphone. We might decide that's the best way to run this. We might have up to 4 of those ceiling microphones up in the ceiling. We would have a total of up to 4 EasyIP cameras. So one of them is on the tracking camera, and you could have 2 or 3 more just showing different audience views if you needed to do that. You know, it shows one of them on a tripod there. And then the output, we're actually just about a month or 2 away from releasing our Dante ceiling speakers. So all you'll have to do is run network cable to all of the different ceiling speakers, and they will get all the audio through that Dante audio.
Brian,
that's coming soon. Yeah.
like 2 questions. So one is the audio output on the EasyIP units 8 ohms? And the second is, what is the max distance from the camera to the switcher or mixer?
Okay, fantastic. So the output is not 8 ohms, it is balanced audio. So the output on both of these devices, whether it's the decoder or the mixer, is just regular balanced audio. The one that has the speaker, what we do is we have 4 pins on there. So we have balanced audio on 3 of those pins, and we have 12 volt on that 4th pin. And so that 12 volt actually powers our little powered speaker. So it's kind of, it looks, you know, you can think of it almost like it is an 8 ohm, but it's not. It's actually balanced audio plus power. And so, you know, that's why you can either run that output from the decoder directly to an amplifier and have the amplifier run the speakers, or you can take that output and run it to our little speaker, and it has that extra little bit of power there, and the power, the speaker is actually powered that way. So the maximum distance, since all of this is running network cable, the maximum distance on anything running through the network switch is that standard network distance, which is 100 meters, 328 feet. So the camera can be up to 328 feet away, still work just fine over just that standard. We put on all of our literature Cat 5e. At this point, you should be installing nothing but at least Cat 6, right? So use your Cat 6 cables, and all of those black lines you see there can be up to 328 feet that you see on the shared screen right now. The one exception is going to be with the EasyIP decoder running those analog microphones. Remember I told you those are our older generation. That's actually limited to 100 feet. So from the EasyIP decoder to the microphone, you're looking at 100 feet of category cable there, is all we officially support. But all of the EasyIP stuff that is network is the full network. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none,
Looks like everything's good.
Cool. Well, we're getting close here. So notice there's a few other things you can do here. You can add in some of these triggers like we talked about. You can also add in that that EasyIP, excuse me, the device controller, which in a larger system like this, the device controller does make a difference, makes it a lot easier to use. And we've actually kind of created some logic in there that when you use this device controller, you use it in one of two modes. You use it as a user or use it as an administrator. When you're using it as a user, you have the ability to create some macros, which I know sounds kind of sophisticated, but basically what it does is, you know how when I stepped to the whiteboard and all of those things happened, switched the camera, moved the cameras, unmuted the microphones, all of that stuff kind of happened automatically. That's just a macro. It's just saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Well, one of the cool things you can do with macros is, you know, if you have an instructor who wants it set up a certain way, or maybe you're not even having an instructor in the room, maybe it's all just students in the room or something like that, the instructor had to stay home, you can have a macro set up so that it reorients the room as if there's not a teacher in the room. So it shows the student cameras and, you know, kind of puts them side by side or something like that. There's all kinds of cool things that you can do with those macros. But you do want to make sure that you run that design by us so that if there's any gotchas, we can accommodate for those gotchas, right? And of course, you can go to BAI and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. BAI comes to Legrand, and we help negotiate all that, right? Okay, and here's what that would look like if you were looking at like a one line. You know, notice that network switch right in the middle has all of those cables connected to it. Those are just cheap Cat6 cables basically running everything. This is kind of a divide combine room where, you know, there's multiple microphones in each room. There's cameras in each room, and you open the door and it's one big room, or you shut the door and it's, you know, two smaller rooms. EasyIP makes this very, very possible. Notice it also has some C2G, HDMI over IP in here to help us get the HDMI signals where we want them to go. And that's all possible with the solutions you have from Legrand AV. All right. So I do want to clarify, and I know I've said this a couple times, but we have had a couple things happen where we've had to return some gear because of some misunderstandings with exactly what's what, right? So EasyIP Mixer is different from EasyIP Decoder. EasyIP Decoder is very cost effective, but it's not quite as capable. So let's look at the accessories you would have to use with EasyIP Decoder only. So these accessories don't work with the EasyIP Mixer. The first is our standard table mic. It only works with the decoder, okay? It's a great table mic, sounds good. It has the touch button on it. It does echo cancellation. Again, a great product, but it's not for use with EasyIP Mixer. Our standard ceiling mic. Notice it looks identical to the Dante microphone, but this one is our standard ceiling microphone versus our ceiling mic D, which is our Dante microphone. And so we need to differentiate those. The standard ceiling microphone is for the decoder. The ceiling mic D stands for digital, or Dante. The Dante microphone is for the mixer. All right. Again, echo cancellation, great coverage. These are awesome ceiling microphones. I mean, I can't express strongly enough how well these work. In fact, a lot of times you're gonna have to have a discussion with your customer saying, you're going to tell your customer, I'm only going to put in 2 microphones. And your customer is going to tell you, no, I know this room needs at least 4, maybe even 6 microphones. And you're going to have to kind of hold firm and say, no, I am nearly confident this room will work with 2 ceiling microphones. And actually, the fewer microphones you put in some instances, the better it will sound. Now, I will tell you, we do run into some problems with this. And it's a problem every microphone is going to have. If the room is incredibly reverberant, concrete floors, glass walls, hard ceilings, you know, it's just basically an echo chamber. If it's an echo chamber, then you really do probably need to think a little bit more about how the microphones are going to go in. But if it's not exactly that setup, you know, I mean, the room has to be really big for you to need more than 2 of these microphones, and we have them priced exactly right, okay? But keep in mind, match the microphone to either the decoder or match the Dante microphone to the mixer. This is another accessory we have available. If you need to get line in, line out of the decoder, this is an option we now have available for that. It's just balanced audio input, balanced audio output on 3.5mm jacks. It says requires a future firmware update. I should have updated that. The firmware is current now, so this is supported. It's the way I'm using things here in my home office. And of course, this all comes together with our deployment tool. So, so we're kind of changing gears now. This is a free download. You can download off of our website called the Vaddio deployment tool. If you have Vaddio devices on the network, this takes them all and allows you to deploy them quickly, allows you to manage them effectively, allows you to do things like update firmware, change passwords, check the status. There's all kinds of great features you get out of this, and we are not charging anything for this other than you just have to give us your email address so we keep track of who's downloaded it. So if we do find you know, something wrong with it, we can quickly email you and say, hey, there might be something that you need to fix or do an update or something like that. But it is absolutely, again, free. However, we do want to note on this that we do not collect any data from our customers. This is not cloud-based. This runs on a computer in your network. And so we're not collecting any data from it. It's just really there for your use. Carrie, did you have another question? Okay. So here's pricing. And it says pricing and availability. Currently, we're running availability is generally everything is available now. We had a little bit of an issue over the summer when we were so busy, but we were kind of caught up from that again, just standard availability, about a week to get products. We are manufactured in the US. That helps us a bunch to kind of overcome some of the availability issues that we have on the Vaddio side. And you can see there the base kit for the regular EasyIP base kit, you know, 36 MSRP. The mixer version of that is just shy of 5,000. That includes one camera. That includes an EasyIP mixer, and that includes a network switch. Okay, so you still need to add on one of the microphones. Notice the EasyIP Stealing Mic D MSRP, and then you notice our other microphones that are compatible with only the decoder, right? All right, we are just about done, folks. So here's kind of the overview. EasyIP is easy to install, very easy to manage. It has a lower total cost of ownership when you consider the idea that we can't really predict exactly what's going to happen. We may need to add devices. We may need to move devices. The installation is going to be quicker. It's going to be easier. If you are selling that installation, it's going to be more profitable because it uses such standard Cat5 cables that nearly everybody in our industry knows how to terminate and knows how to run correctly. And we're going to give you that deployment tool if you're doing a lot of these to help make that installation go that much faster. Everything you need for this AV over IP solution available from Legrand AV. HDMI over IP from C2G, and of course the EasyIP. We're kind of a one-stop shop for all that, and I say that in regards to, of course, we know that you're going to source this from BAI, but you can get that whole package. We can put the Legrand stamp of approval on that, and we can help you then, you know, through the process. If you need installation support, you call us. We actually have people who answer the phone and who help you through that. You know, it's one of those things you get with both of the products we talked about today, C2G and Vaddio. It's lifetime support. So if you need to call us 5 years down the road, call us. We're going to help you. We're not going to charge you for that. It's going to be available to you. It's all there and easy. Okay. We do have a lot of collateral available. If any of you need a copy of this presentation, let me know. I'll be happy to send it to you. And these links then would be active, but you can get all of this by going to legrandav.com and just searching for EasyIP. If you do that, you'll get a lot of this. The C2G stuff, you'll go to c2g.com and look for their HDMI over IP. Again, if you want your CTS RU, I need to have a chat or an email that says you attended the session. I'll compare that to who actually attended the session. I have to actually do an attendance check on these things. You must email me within 48 hours because after 48 hours, I send the list to my team who generates all the certificates, and then my team will then send you the certificate. I can tell you from history that some of these certificates, because they're sent out in a mass email, you know, everybody gets the certificate with blind carbon copy on them, you know. I don't know why it is, but because that doesn't make sense. But the whole point is that some of these will end up in junk mail folders. So if you haven't received your certificate by a week from today, check your junk mail folder. And if you still don't see it in there, give me an email and let me know that you haven't received it, because that's the only way we can really get these certificates out to you. Any questions? That's it for me.
The one thing I would like to add is that I don't think you're getting a few chats here with the request, Brian, for things. I'm sure you can see that now that you're on a presentation mode. On our website, Brian had recommended to go there. We have a lot of resources as well as other schematic drawings that Brian and his team have come up with for more solutions than just the EasyIP system. So if you're looking for educational solutions, house of worship solutions, small, medium business solutions, working from home solutions, because a lot of us have already gone back into working from home, right? We got a teaser going back into the office and now sent back home with everything that's going on. A lot of that is under the solutions page on our website, and you can find that. If you have any questions at all, if you need design help, you need a schematic drawing, even if it has other equipment other than Legrand AV equipment in it, please let Brian or myself know, or even your BAI team, and they can get in touch with the right people so we can help you with that design and that schematic drawing and just kind of do a double check on paper, make sure that the system works. We definitely appreciate your time today, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us or one of your VAI team members at any time for any Legrand AV support and questions.
Cool. And if you want to just hang on for just another moment, I will attach the PDF of this presentation into the chat. So you can just download it right out of the chat here in just a second. It'll take, 30 or 40 seconds for it to upload, but I'll have it to you here in just a moment. And then I don't have to worry about anybody not getting it. There we go. Okay, it's uploading right now. And it should be in the chat now. So if you want to open up your chat, it may take just a moment for it to download, but you should have that PDF in the chat. And so far I have just one person wanting the CTS credit, or somebody's going to email me privately. Cool. Any other questions? Oh, there's another one. All right. Any other questions? If not, we'll give you back 10 minutes back to your day. Thank you all very much. Really appreciate your time. We really appreciate our partnership with BAI. They have been awesome to work with. They know the industry. They know how to get you solutions. They're a fantastic partner for Legrand. And so, obviously we want you to reach out to them first if you have questions, because they are able to navigate a lot of that internally. But keep in mind, everybody from Legrand is here to help out too. So if at any point in time you do want some help from us, we're happy to do that. But again, we love our partner BAI and really appreciate them allowing us to be a part of this, a part of their presentation, their sessions today. All right. Well, with that, thank you all very much.